Bonjour, hola, habari, hello, and hello. Welcome to episode 1 of Notes from the Field from Liminal Data in conjunction with the ESG Show. So I think we've got Usain Bolt on the show today, haven't we? No, I don't know. Sorry, no, I don't think we have. Strike that. But we do have Petter Binde and Don Casper. Hello, Don and Petter.
Hi there. Thank you for having us. Great to be here.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So what's your time for the 100 meters then?
Wow. I think it's been a while since I did run the 100 meters, but maybe that's an idea for the next episode, that we do it on a stadium where we can do it, get that settled once and for all.
Great idea. We could be racing each other whilst we're talking about ESG. It's a great idea. Anyway, today we're talking about the ESG Sprint. And before we start talking, we're running a quick introduction to the show. Right, so I thought we'd get straight in there today. And I have a question for you, Petter. What's the ESG Sprint?
Yeah, well, the ESG Sprint is really a practical and actionable approach to get your business quickly and efficiently on track for a sustainable future. It takes inspiration from the design sprint, developed by Google Ventures, which is about quickly and efficiently developing a product or a service. This is an approach for understanding needs and developing solutions quickly, and this is where the ESG Sprint takes inspiration from as well. It's a 7-step approach to understanding the challenges surrounding the business on this topic, and setting the ambitions, and that is basically setting out the approach to getting where you need to be. And it's very much focused on action rather than overdoing the analysis. It's focused on getting momentum quickly and getting moving and engaging people in the process.
Okay, and why? So why are you such a big fan?
Yeah, well, the reason is really that so many companies go around this topic of sustainability, of ESG, whatever you want to call it, and they acknowledge that this is important. They go around it with not really knowing where to start. And what often happens is that companies are overdoing the analysis thing. You get maybe drowning into analysis, and you drown into perceived problems relating to compliance and so on. You address this as something that you have to do rather than something that you should do to strengthen your business. And my whole point is really that you need to get your team mobilized on this. You get your team together, you understand the challenges that your business is facing, and you start setting the direction and charting the course. And overdoing analysis is a trap that so many businesses have fallen into. You should start moving and start getting momentum, and basically iterate and improve your process and your course along the way. It's all about action, really.
Okay, all right, thanks for that, Petter. So I did read your book this weekend, and it was a choice between that or watching a box set on Netflix. So I decided to read your book.
Wow, great! Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. Hope
And,
you enjoyed it.
And it was great, and I would highly recommend it. But Don, I'd like to bring you on at this point. And how does all this resonate, this ESG sprint, with what you're seeing in the market?
Sure. Yeah, I think it resonates very well. It really hits the nail on the head. I come from a technical background, and I think, my personal approach and what I think is sorely needed in the industry is this technical approach of something like the sprint, which is really all about having a really ambitious target, but finding your way there through incremental progress. So it's getting into action, which is the most important thing, overcoming that initial inertia, building momentum, and taking incremental steps. We at Liminal, our roots are in Silicon Valley, so this is very near and dear to our hearts. So what I advocate always for is taking those bite-sized chunks, staying agile. What you know tomorrow won't be the same as what you know today, and you're going to need to stay agile and jump around and kind of steer the company or steer your efforts in different directions as you see different challenges. Certainly today, there's no shortage of challenges between political landscape shifting, between ESG frameworks and regulation shifting. So everything is really about taking those incremental steps and making sure that you're in a place where you can adapt and be flexible and kind of build your progress over time. What I would say is why this is so important is ESG just by nature can be seemingly three really big topics. So environmental, social, and governance. When you put those three things together, it becomes almost insurmountable to a lot of different people. So overcoming those big technical challenges, sometimes political challenges, and then really chipping away at it and staying agile in the process.
Okay, and what's AI got to do with all of this?
Sure, yeah. So of course we've all heard of AI by now, and specifically the generative AI form, where it's really having that natural language processing, being able to have that co-pilot or that companion by your side. What I would say is to have a companion that has an unlimited knowledge base by your side is really precious to this process. Being able to have a resource where you can ask it questions, have a resource to do some of the analysis and calculations for you, or even to build the data-driven narratives that you have to sell to your CEO or your exec team or to the general public for that matter.
Okay, so the way I see it is AI is a little bit like your coach. It's back to the sprinting analogy. It's the guy there who behind the scenes that's massaging you or giving you tips or whatever. But why can't you just use ChatGPT for that?
Well, I think there's some inherent flaws in using an off-the-shelf generative AI model. One is that there's no guarantee that your data is private. So if you think about ESG and dealing with both non-financial and financial data, that you need to take comfort in knowing where your data goes, making sure that you're not sharing proprietary knowledge, and making sure that it really retains everything that you're giving it. They're great tools. I use them every day. But sometimes the off-the-shelf does introduce risk that you should avoid.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like about Liminal is that you are basically making these tools available real time. You're able to access data and insights and use them in the real time, which fits, of course, very well with the whole sprint approach, because in the old days, you would probably have to send off a team to dig into data and find the insights and come back with them, and you would have to spend a lot more time on that process. Whereas now, with the tools that you have available, you can really run things in real time, and you can draw those insights as you move along, and you can make decisions accordingly along the way.
Yeah, exactly. What I would say is AI, as easy it is to interface with it, there's a lot of technicalities and a lot of difficulties that you may encounter when using an off-the-shelf model. We do use ChatGPT ourselves in our tool. The difference is that we really procure kind of the inputs and the outputs from ChatGPT. So there's a couple benefits there. One is to maintain your privacy. So no data that we take from you or any of the prompts that you enter are used to train someone else's models. Those stay internal to us. But the benefit is that we are able to use a large language model that's state of the art. In the future, we'll have the capability to even change different models. Even within ChatGPT, there's different models that you can use, from small language models to large language models. But that introduces a lot of complexity. So, let us do that work. That's what our software does well. And then we provide something that's in the context of ESG, that's built for workflows of someone that's a sustainability practitioner, or maybe doing ESG or sustainability for the first time. And we handle a lot of that complexity so that you get all the maximum benefits without any of the downsides or risk.
Can I add just a quick comment? Because I think ESG is, this is about business strategy, really. It's not something that is, separate. It needs to be integral to how you run your business and how you build and make your business competitive for the future. That means also you are dealing with a whole lot of business data. So the point Don mentioned about keeping that proprietary, making that stay within the walls of the company, that's important. But it's not just something you feed an AI model with, and then it becomes available out there in the market. You need to work in a way that is secure, and you need to treat this as you do with other business data.
Yeah, and a big part of our platform is the data piece. That's usually that initial inertia that people have a really hard time overcoming. So if you think about the data that you use for ESG, it can be, it's mostly financial data. Sometimes it does include financial data, but it's your environmental. So if you have office spaces, it's your energy bills, it's your energy data, it's consumption patterns, it's business travel. It's all of these things that live in different data silos within your organization. So a big part of what we do is help people overcome that initial inertia and really build a knowledge base for that company by building API data connectors, making it as easy as possible to get that data and put it into one place. And now that creates a really nice knowledge base that we're able to leverage when you use the AI tools in our platform. It pulls from that knowledge base, it goes out and uses the large language model to supplement that, and it gives you a nice detailed response that's going to help you in your journey.
Okay, so I'm interested in what you'd talked about small language models, and maybe that's something we could talk about in the future. I don't think we've got enough time to go into it today. But also, Petter, just now you were talking about embedding ESG into an organization. So it's like an intrinsic part. I mean, I'd liken it a bit like ESG by design in a way, which is borrowing a concept from privacy by design, ESG by design. But how's that compatible with the ESG sprint? I mean, if you're sprinting, you don't have enough time to incorporate it into strategy, do you?
Yeah. Well, the problem is that a lot of companies still view this as some sort of a task or some sort of a problem they need to address, primarily in order to be compliant with regulation requirements from the outside. There's still a lot of companies that address it like that. Whereas I would argue, and I think it's becoming more and more accepted, that this needs to be an integral way of how you run your business, because these issues are having an impact on how you are attracting your customers, how you are attracting the talent that you need to attract to work in your business. How, not least, how you get qualified for financing. The banks and institutions that provide finance, they will be lending to the ones who qualify. And now you see this, especially in some sectors, you see it increasingly obviously that you will not banks will not be lending to those that do not comply in the real estate sector, for instance. And then, of course, investors for your business for the future. All of these are integral part of your business strategy, how you address all of these. And so ESG and sustainability have a direct impact on all of them. That's why you have to address it as strategy. And also the sprint is really a way to get you ready for that quickly. So to incorporate this in your strategy in a fast and efficient way that is consistent with the business strategy that you have. And so that's in short. Yeah.
Okay. 7 steps for the ESG sprint. We could quickly run through those 7 steps very quickly.
Yeah, very quick.
It's on the opportunity to interject as we go along. And I won't go through all one by one. We'll do them in groups of 2.
Yeah.
The first 2 steps: understand the challenge and define what it means to you. Yeah. Can you very briefly explain that step and how that relates to the ESG Sprint?
Sure. Understand is really more about the whole big context of this issue, how it impacts all of us and how it impacts the world, and also in the larger context, the industry and so on. Defining is really bringing this more down to what impact does it specifically have for you and your business and your stakeholders, your customers, your employees, everyone who is a stakeholder of the business. What does it mean for them, and what does it mean in terms of requirements, risks, opportunities, and so on?
Okay, John, can AI help with these first 2 steps? Define what it means to you. Does AI have a role to play?
Yeah. So I look at this from 2 different angles. I think one is that, let's be real, a lot of people are doing sustainability because they have to. Either they have a large customer that's forcing them to, or there's some regulation. So being able to understand kind of a gap analysis from where you are today, from where you need to be, AI is perfect for that. We have customers that use our platform for that today. The second piece of that is for the people that don't know where to start. They're doing ESG for the right reasons. They want to meet or exceed regulation, or they're doing it because they know and see the business value to it. I think breaking things down into those bite-sized chunks of the sprint, so to speak, AI really helps kind of accomplish those tasks and unburden the sustainability team. A point that I always like to bring up is, the average sustainability team size is 1 person. They work with cross-functional teams. That means a lot of an enormous amount of work falls on the heads of very few people. They're also not only just overburdened, but understaffed and under resourced, right? So fighting for budget when you can't go out and hire that extra headcount or can't go and afford that expensive consultant. AI really is that supercharge that can help a small team do a lot of things. And that brings us back to the ESG Sprint, right? Is when you think about a software team, maybe a good analogy is if you were told to run 26.2 miles. So for the US audience, right, that's a marathon. Right, it's very overwhelming if you're told you have to run that all right now. But the idea of a sprint is having a team and doing those individual sprints. Maybe people running 100-meter chunks or mile chunks, but getting to the finish line through a group effort. And if you can use the brand new Nike shoes, which I would relate to AI in this piece, right, it's going to help you get there faster and more efficiently.
Okay, steps 3 and 4 of the ESG Sprint. Shape your view of a sustainable future, step 3, and chart the course to get there.
Yes.
Petter.
So shaping your view of the sustainable future is really about creating the vision of where your business is going to be in the future, taking all those things into account that you have identified earlier, like the risk and the opportunities and all that. What is your ambition? Where do you want to be? What do you think your industry is going to look like? And we often just create a real visual image of this, draw it up on the wall. What is it going to look like? And then from there, when you have a view of what your future should look like for your business, then you start charting the course to get there. Then you have to get into things like gap analysis, finding out where you are today, where you need to close the gaps, what do you need to do to in order to close those gaps, what is the course that you need to chart in order to get to that vision that you have set. So that's in short the steps 3 and 4. Yeah.
All right, John, do you want to interject at that point?
Sure, yeah, I go back to the point where sometimes the journey can be overwhelming if you're looking from the starting place. So Michael, you're in England, I'm in New York. If I were to look at a map, I would say, okay, what's the easiest way to get to Michael? I would get on a boat and sail a straight line. But we all know that there's storms, there's islands, there's going to be different difficulties along the way. So I think having that idea of where you need to end up, what's going to be material, which is a big, the concept of materiality is important for ESG, understanding what's right for your business so that you can make those decisions along the way. and kind of chart that course as you're going. You can have a general idea of where you're headed and know what the end goals are. Maybe, right, what you're going for is brand recognition. Maybe you're trying to meet some compliance. But I think how you get there, you're going to have a general idea, but staying agile, using that sprint methodology of being able to handle challenges along the way and kind of meander and ultimately get to your end goal. That's going to be much quicker than trying to rush through it and trying to define a really ambitious target, which I think the ESG, if I could be critical for it for a minute, is a lot of times people think of really long time horizons. So what does the year 2050 look like? Well, the reality is we don't have crystal balls. So you have a general idea of the direction you need to head, but then the most important thing is starting that journey and knowing what direction you need to go and taking those challenges as they come.
Okay, so step 5 and 6. Validate with stakeholders, engage people, and move fast. Petter, validate with stakeholders.
Validate with
people,
stakeholders, and this is always something that is important in my opinion. You need to check with you need to touch base with your customers. You need to validate with stakeholders internally and externally. See that you're verify and check that you're on the right track. That what you are doing is also something that fits with the requirements and expectations that they have. And when it comes to engaging, you're not going to be able to do this on your own. You will probably have a small management team or a relatively small team that is doing the sprint and setting the course here, and you need to immediately start engaging the organization. That's what it's about. Make this a task that is or an effort that goes through the organization, where you involve people. Is not something that a task force is going to do. It's something that you have to roll out through the organization, and that's why engage is so important. You need to engage the people of your organization and get them on board and make sure that everybody understands everything and take this on board and have what they need in order to make this happen.
Okay. A bit concerned about the time. Don, do you want to come in, or shall I ask Petter one more question and get you to sum up about AI
Sure.
and the ESG Sprint? Okay.
Yeah. I'll just add a point here, because I think this is incredibly important. And in my professional career, I never understood how important political capital is within an organization. So I mentioned the small under-resourced teams, right? There's no sustainability team that has kind of the firepower and the budget to just plow through with sustainability. So part of the journey of sustainability and ESG is really building those stakeholders. We mentioned about how environmental, social, and governance are seemingly different topics. But if you think about the parts of an organization that touches, it's incredibly important to get those stakeholders on board, as well as it could be your customers, it could be your vendors, it could be the general public. But getting all of those heads in one room, even if it's virtual, and then working together and spending that political capital, I think is incredibly important. And probably the most important point that I've been preaching for the last 6 months is, right, it can't be just about the regulations. It's got to be about driving value for the business. So I think the way that you get people on board is showing that, sustainability does in fact have an ROI associated with it. It can help each and every department within a company. And the ultimate goal should be to make the environment and society better, but also make the company a more responsible, more profitable business as well.
Okay. And the final step, track and report progress.
Yeah, I'll do that very quickly. That's really about everything that happens after you've done the sprint, and it's about making sure that things really happen and that what you have set out to do gets implemented. So you need to monitor, you need to track the progress, and you need to have good tools for that. And that's also where tools like Liminal are incredibly important and valuable, to make sure that you are tracking it, you are keeping score, and you're also correcting action, your course of action where that is needed, because things will change, and you will sometimes need to correct your course and so on, and you need good data to do that. That's an important part of the track and report phase.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just add to that real quick that I think this is incredibly important. I think one is when when you're going and following a sprint methodology, it's all about progress, and the way that you show progress is showing what your company, what the status of everything was last year or 10 years ago, whatever your metric is. But I think tracking that progress, being able to show that we in fact spent this money well, we've increased the ROI for the business, but having that track record. There's going to be wins, there's going to be losses, but I think being able to show the journey, what I always like to tell people is sustainability really is about the journey. It's not just about the end goal. And so tracking and measuring your progress is an important part of that.
So it's not all about dipping at the line at the end then. There's a bit more to it than that.
Exactly.
Right, okay. So, on paper our time is up. Have you guys got another five or so minutes to
Sure.
Carry on? Okay. Petter, I wanted to talk to you about perfection. Obviously, you're perfect Peter, aren't you? I think perfect Petter.
I think,
but
yeah,
maybe sometimes it's better just
opinion.
to get on with it and learn from our mistakes. Is that right?
No, I think forget about perfection, or don't really aim for perfection. That's not gonna be helping you. You have to aim for momentum. You have to get moving, and you keep your momentum. You iterate. You correct your course. You learn from the mistakes you make, and you learn from things that happen along the way. And that's where that's the way you continue to build your momentum, and it has you get a flywheel effect of it. The perfection path is not really going to help you. And I know that there's a lot of companies that have been on this path of trying to do the perfect thing, maybe hiring an expensive consultancy to do a beautiful report for you that is nice and glossy, but it doesn't really get you to the action that you need. And that's something that you have to initiate yourself with your team and just start moving, and then you learn from that and you improve from that.
Okay, well, I've got some good news. I was thinking seriously, but decided not to sing It's Gotta Be Perfect. But I've decided not to sing that. So that's some good news. Don, perfection.
Yeah, I would say practical all day over perfection. I think, and if I could lay another criticism about kind of ESG in the sustainability space, is that, there's a confluence, or really not a confluence, but a surge of rating systems and things that try to put you on a scale of 0 to 100 or 0 to 10. And I think that gives people the idea that 10 or 100 is what you really strive for. And the reality is that's, a lot of times those are made up numbers to begin with. But 10 or 100 might not be possible. Perfect may not be possible. I think it's about practical and showing progress over time. I think the overall goal of ESG and sustainability is if we can do better than we did in the past, then we show that we have the ability to change the industry.
Okay. Don, I've got a few questions for you.
Sure.
What about Liminal? What makes Liminal different from traditional ESG platforms or consultants?
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question. And I will admit that this is one of the most common questions that we get, whether we're talking to investors, whether we're talking to customers or partners. What I would say is really what makes us special is that when we started the company in 2023, we took our Silicon Valley roots and really looked at this and say, okay, what is the challenge from people being able to start and continue on their ESG and sustainability journey? I happen to have a background in both sustainability and data analytics. But of course, we came up with two problems. One is the data science challenge. So a lot of the things that we've talked about are, based on the quality of data that you're getting from your company that often lives in different siloed areas. But it's also about the data science of how do you transform that into something useful. So how do you build a metric or a KPI that's meaningful? Again, going back to those material topics, meaningful for your business. So we built our platform with the data first in mind. So how do you handle that data and how do you do something useful with it? The second challenge is the subject matter. So another thing we talked about today was just this really broad subject matter. It's highlighted by kind of the acronym of ESG as 3 different topics together, really broad topics. And so we said, okay, what are the tools that people are going to need to better understand those topics? Because you can't be expected to know all about your business and all about all the possible ESG topics that are out there. And that's really where AI comes in, and this idea of building a knowledge base and leveraging those documents that you collect, last year's reports, your competitors' reports. But on the topic matter, how do we really create an agent that can help someone that has a seemingly unlimited amount of knowledge? So where Liminal came in is we didn't focus on the regulations. We didn't treat this as a box checking exercise or a form filling exercise. We really focused on kind of the data and the subject matter expertise and combine those two. And then our job as a software company is really to keep improving the workflow, making it as easy to fit into someone's workflow that has to do this type of work. And then we're also ambitious in saying, okay, well, we believe that sustainability is so important that this really becomes a core component of business overall. So how do we reach those CFOs? How do we reach those CMOs? How do we reach those other stakeholders that we talked about earlier in this podcast and make a tool that's useful for them? So again, it's it's combining that data science and subject matter expertise and really giving someone those super powerful tools that are going to help them in their day to day. And it goes back to practical. It's not the lofty blue sky thinking of where we're going to be in 2050. It's here's the direction we need to head for 2050. And these are the challenges that face me today, whether it's a customer asking for more information, whether it's a new framework that you have to apply for, whether it's new regulation, but being able to tackle all those challenges as you go.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, how does Liminal enable teams to move faster and smarter during an ESG sprint?
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, is we really aim to solve the bigger challenges so that we really free up a team's time, whether it's an internal team, whether it's external consultants, is if we can handle the data piece, if we can pull all that subject matter expertise into one place, then we really free up someone's capacity to think critically about how can I get the most impact to my business through sustainability. So it goes back to the idea of political capital of how, we would much rather our customers spend their time, let us do the heavy lifting and spend their time figuring out who they need to get in front of, what story they need to tell that's based on actual data, and how to propel the company forward than to wrestle with a spreadsheet or argue over a consulting agreement.
Okay, and where do you see ESG going next? And how is Liminal preparing for that future?
Sure. Yeah, I gave a glimpse of it in my last answer, but I think what we think is sustainability is going to get sucked into the core components of business. I don't think it's going to be a standalone thing where you have, a couple of new hires that are tasked with ESG, or not necessarily new hires, but kind of that few headcount, that 1 or 2 or 3 people that are focused on this, and they're left alone in an office by themselves to their own devices. I think this is going to be so critical to businesses moving forward. In reality right now, a lot of our customers are scared because of politics right now, because of tariffs. There's a lot of real world things going on that can rock the boat. In this case, the boat being the company. And I think sustainability is the tool and the process and the strategy to really give you stability and give you agility to handle that as a business. So I think where it's headed is it's no longer going to be an independent exercise or a solo exercise. It's going to be a core component of what every business does. And so to that end, by design, we by sticking to our roots of that data science and the subject matter expertise, is we're developing a framework that now you can apply to all aspects of the business. So whether it's understanding how are tariffs going to affect energy prices, what's climate risk and the transitional and physical risks that my company faces, it's starting to kind of flex that muscle so that we can go in front of a much broader audience internal to an organization than just the sustainability team.
Okay, thanks for that, John. Okay, I think we need to sort of wind up now. So I've got sort of one more final thought from both of you. What piece of advice would you give for a company planning its next ESG push or its next ESG sprint, I suppose? Petter.
Well, for me, I think it's important to see this as not about not being about compliance. It's about future-proofing your business, really. And as Don said, also this will become more and more integral to how we regard business strategy. In a few years from now, we might not even be talking about it because it's so integral to the way we run our business. But don't see it as compliance, see it as a way of future-proofing your business. and address it in a practical way. I mean, understand the risks and the opportunities that face your business, and start working on them. I would say use the sprint approach to just take you step by step through this, and you'll be on track before you know it. It's all about action. Make it practical. Don't make it about an overkill in analysis and putting it out to task forces to work on and come back in several weeks. Just get moving.
Okay, that's your piece of advice. Your final words, Don.
Sure. Yeah, I would say really brick by brick. Start today, overcome that initial inertia, start doing something. The biggest wins aren't going to happen in year one. The biggest wins are going to happen further down the road based on the solid foundation that you build today. It can seem insurmountable, but I think starting very small, starting steady, and starting to win over those internal stakeholders and charting the course for your company to do better. I know it sounds a little bit lofty, but I think from the day to day is, if you can start chipping away at some of these big problems now, you're going to win a lot of stakeholders over, and those problems are going to become accomplishable. Or you'll be able to achieve kind of everything that you set out to. It really just takes time and the willingness to keep chipping away at it over time.
Okay, well, thank you, Don. World record for 100 meters is 9.58 seconds, I think. I think it took us a bit longer than that today, but nonetheless, pretty brisk. Thank you very much, guys.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, everyone.